Hi, my name is Jessica Zhou. I am the principal harpist of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and this is my 12th season with the Symphony. My role in the orchestra is I am the only harpist, and the harp acts as a section alone, and which I love about that. How I came about to play the harp, it's really because my mother was a harpist, and she played professionally with China Philharmonic Orchestra in Beijing, China. So I grew up with music around the family. However, my mom didn't want me to play the harp in the beginning because she didn't think the harp was mainstream enough of an instrument. So she really wanted me to play piano. And I think parts of it is because the accessibility to the instrument itself. Because when I was growing up, the concert harp was not seen very often outside of the orchestra stage. So I started on the piano when I was 5 years old. And I never really liked practicing the piano, but I had to, keep, practicing every day. That was my instrument at the time. However, so when I got older, a little bit older, when I was 9 years old, my mom had, for the first time, was able to bring her harp home from her orchestra. She used to only practice in the orchestra. So when she brought it home, I remember it took up pretty much the whole living room space. And we had a very small apartment in Beijing. And I just thought it was the most beautiful thing. Even now when I see a harp, I still think it's the most really beautiful instrument. So between my practicing of my piano, I would literally go finding excuses, not wanting to practice. So I would go over and just pluck a string at a time as like my little break from the piano. And I would always pick the red strings, which are Cs. I just thought they were really pretty, so I would do that. And I always thought it was such a different feel because piano, you would be hitting the keys with your fingers, but then the actual sound was produced by the hammer, versus the harp. I felt very instantly much more personal because I'm touching the strings directly with my fingertip, and I love that. So my mom had noticed that I took an interest of her harp. So she had asked me, if I don't play the piano, what instrument that I wanted to play. I said I'm interested in the harp because I knew all the pieces that I grew up listening to all the pieces. And because I was playing the piano for already 4 or 5 years, so it really gave me a very good foundation. And the harp music is very similar to piano music, including treble and bass clef. It's actually very common for us to play piano music on the harp even now. So right away when I started taking lessons on the harp, I was 9 years old. It became very easy to me because all the pieces, I feel it was much easier to read than the piano. It was the same kind of music with both clefs. However, I just transferred it on the harp, and to me the harp became more personable, and I just took on the harp very quickly. So I progressed pretty quickly in the beginning, and that kind of gave me a huge confidence on the harp. And I think that, for anybody starting out with music, being confident, finding your instrument is very important because you will know what instrument that speaks to you. And of course, everybody has their own story, how they started, to pick your instrument. And for me, in the beginning, because of my the connection with my mom, but also I love the way it looks, and I love how gigantic it was. And I also thought it was really fun because something, for me, that I can touch this instrument with my own fingers and, playing it all up and down on the harp, it was much more fun to me personally. And I also like the feeling that I can hold this in front of me versus the piano, it was sort of empty in front of me. But this is all very personal. So I think all these things, you have to find an instrument that speaks to you and that will, carry on as your voice expression. Yeah. In terms of instrument care and maintenance for the harp, it's really not as much as other instruments because your harp comes in one piece. And if it comes in more than one piece, then you're in trouble. The harp something is wrong with it. So the harp you will see the curving part as part of the neck. And then you have the strings, and then we have the soundboard, and then we have on the bottom what we call the pedals. And we have 7 pedals on the bottom, and 7 pedals being one in control of each note of the scale. So you have, so that's a C major scale. And right now I have all the pedals set in the middle, and that is the natural position. And if I change them, if I loosen them, put them all the way up to the top position, you would have seen my disc had moved. And that had loosened the strings. And that will make all the strings half step flat. So now the C major had changed to C flat major. And then I will put all the pedals all the way down in the most sharp position, which you will see also the disc have tightened. And now everything is in sharp. So the pedals is what gives the harp the unique opportunity that the harp, you can set the pedals in different variations, and that you can play glissando, all kinds of harmony, the glissandos with it. And for me, in terms of maintenance, that one thing I have to do every day for any harpist to keep in mind is tuning of the harp, because the harp is a very temperamental instrument. So whenever you move it or have it moved from different one room to another, and depending on the weather, if it's humid or if it's dry, it will go out of tune. So you will have to tune each string one by one. So on this side, where you see this pin, on this side, on my right side, is where I will take my tuning key and tune each note on the pin. So each string has a pin on the right side accordingly, and I will tune each one in a row to tune them note by note. And what helps me to tune is, other than, you can use your ears, but also you can use an electric tuner that really will help you. Especially during orchestra, before orchestra rehearsals, it's, you will have other colleagues, warming up on stage. It's not fair for me to always ask them to not play so that I can tune. So I'm always prepared with my tuner and also a pickup microphone. So that will attach to the tuner, and I will clip it to the back of my harp so that it will pick up my harp. And this way, I'm not disrupting my other colleagues' warm-up time as well. So for a beginner of practicing, I wanted to, before I talk about that, because I don't know how many young kids are starting to learn the harp. I wanted to say something about why you should learn the harp, because I know that again, many people take up a violin or other instruments, and they don't really think about the harp. The harp may not be the first one, and I think a lot of it is because you may not see it very often. And this morning, I asked my daughter, who's 7, because I asked her, she's at that age, she kept, she had mentioned a few times why, maybe she wants to play the harp. So I asked her, I said, well, why do you want to play the harp? She said, it's very special, and nobody really plays it. So I feel it's very, very rare. So I thought that was a really good answer, because if you want to be different, and not many people will probably play the same instrument as you. So if you decide to play the harp, first of all, you have to convince your parents, because they're going to be the ones that are helping you probably to move it. It is quite heavy, but in the beginning of when you're starting, you're not going to have this full size. This is the concert grand size, and this weighs about 80 pounds, and it's about 6 feet tall. So it is quite big for a 7, 8 years old. But I think that what is special is you can probably start and just renting it, from different shops and then see if you like it. But one thing in the beginning for practicing to keep in mind is you will get blisters after practicing over and over the same motion, because that's probably what you will be focusing on. So for instance, we usually start with one finger at a time. And then you will probably move on to the next finger. So as you can see, in the beginning, you may find this very fun to do. It's just something, with your fingers, you're plucking the string, but your teacher will probably trying to tell you what kind of position you have to stay in, your hand position, and how centered the sound will be. And the more you do this repetitively on one finger, you will develop. At first, you will notice that it becomes red, and then eventually you will develop blisters. But that's very normal. And the key to really practicing in the beginning is to be consistent. I think that really has to be something you keep in mind all through your life as a musician. You just want to be consistent at practicing, getting to the instrument and playing even in the beginning, 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day. And also really listen to what your teacher has to say. And your teacher, take notes of what your teacher has to say. And if you do what your teacher has to say in the lessons, you will progress. So your teacher wants to see you progress. And eventually your pieces will get harder and you will be satisfied because you are progressing. But in the beginning, the key is really to endure the toughness in your fingers to develop what we call calluses. I always have calluses on. And the key is to keep your fingers just the right amount of toughness, not too harsh, because if you have too much callus, you're not going to have a very supple sound. So you want to have a nice sound. However, if I'm away from my instrument for too long, too many days, I will lose my callus. And then when I come back on the instrument, it's going to hurt my fingers. And I don't want that. So right now, I know a good routine. At least I want to work my fingers every day for at least, if I can, 30 minutes of just doing even scales. Or arpeggios. I think warming up on the instrument and just get to the instrument every day for a little bit will make you just want to move your fingers a little bit. You will feel good at the end of the day. And with the pieces, you always want to keep working on what your teacher tell you to. And then listen with your own ears. Are you happy with how you play? Do you hear the progress? I think you will. Once you hear that, you will want to go practice more because you can see progress and you can hear progress. So a rehearsal tip. Now that you have really decided you have taken up the harp and your teacher has said you are good enough to join your youth orchestra, congratulations, because I think that playing in an orchestra is the most fun, because I enjoy playing by myself, but I love playing big symphonic works where I get to sit in the middle with my colleagues on stage. And for a harpist, it's very, very important that you will listen to the recording when you get a new piece you are not familiar with. I cannot tell you how many pieces with harp that composers have written where the harpist will not play for an hour or 30 minutes or to an hour on stage without doing anything. And then all of a sudden you come in, it's a cadenza. So you cannot be going in unprepared, not knowing when to come in. So when you go to rehearsal, first of all, you should always tune your harp, before each rehearsal. And I try to get to rehearsal fairly early because I will use my electric tuner to tune, but I also like to double check with my ears. You know, sometimes you just want to hear how it sounds. Is it really in tune? So I will always be there a little bit early to tune. And then you want to listen to all the excerpts before at home. And of course, you need to know your notes. That's just the basic etiquette of playing in an orchestra. So the worst nightmare really I have is I don't know the part. And all of a sudden, the orchestra and the conductor will turn to me and say, harp, and I don't know what I'm playing. Like that's, I didn't know I'm supposed to come in there. It's very embarrassing. So, I think you will notice that, and you don't have a colleague, you don't have other 10 harpists to cover for you. So you're the only one there. That is a very, very challenging, but at the same time, I think I love that because I really get to represent my whole section. In fact, so the BSO has been doing youth concerts every year, since I've been in the orchestra. And for youth concerts, you can check online, we wear colorful shirts that represents each section of the orchestra. So in the beginning when I joined, they said, well, the harp should be with the strings. So I had a string shirt that said strings, and it was blue. And then later on, they said, well, we think that, because you're with the piano, you're next to the piano, we think the harp should be with the percussions. So then they switched me, they gave me a new shirt that said it's green. So it said percussion on my shirt. So finally, I said, I don't feel I'm really should be this section. They said, well, what do you want to be? I said, I'm a harp. I said, I want to be my own section because I'm not piano, I'm not strings. I do have a lot of strings, but I'm the only one in the orchestra. And I feel very special. I should be my own section. So finally, I was able to get my own shirt and my own color, and it says harp. So next time when you come to our youth concert, you won't miss me. I'm the only one with a pink harp shirt on stage. I'm very proud of that because the instrument, is unique, and I wouldn't want to be in any other section.
you.